Okay, again, welcome everybody to the next program of the World Education broadcast done by the World Educator. Moving on, if you have any questions, you can email me at the email given or the organization, or if you have any questions regarding any topic, you could drop in the comment section below. Talking a little bit about our program, the World Education broadcast, in short, the web, is one of a kind, done by the World Educator, and I'm your host, Rashen Samarawickrama, the owner and the founder of the organization. And our main intention using through the program is to raise awareness about different topics that currently discussed in the world and different topics that are there present, issues and other things, so that all our listeners will get a broader knowledge on each aspect of of worldly matters. And also this program hopes to train the young minds to think in a different way and to think in ways which will help the world or in an overall manner. Moving on, it is time to welcome our guest. After a short introduction, I will hand over the floor to our guest speaker today. We have Nicole Ling, a teen activist, the founder and the executive director of Culture Edu Fluent, and a journalist in regards to human rights concern. Talking about our speaker, Nicole Ling is a teen activist, a social entrepreneur, a civic journalist for politics, movements, and human rights concern in countries such as Taiwan and across China, Hong Kong, and Southeast Asian countries. She is also the founder and the executive director of Culture Edu Fluent, which is a non-profit organization. She has spoken in 40 plus international conferences and workshops and has been featured in over 30 plus media coverages. It is a great honor to have you here, ma'am. Thank you for sparing your time with us. And going towards our educational topic for the day, summarizing our topic would be journalism and digitalization, but I hope there will be a broad aspect of this discussed in the topic today. And yes, ma'am, the floor is up to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Thank you, Rashen, for introducing the topic for journalism and digitalization. But today we'll talk a little bit more, even not only just journalism or digitalizations, but also talk a little bit about how teenagers can get into civic engagement, not only specifically in journalism, because I personally believe that everybody could be a civic journalist themselves, but not exactly get into journalism, but get into the area or the fields that they really like, they're passionate of, and just focus on yourselves and enjoy the process. So before I officially start, I will just do my self-introduction again. I'm Nicole Ling, and I'm currently a senior high school student, and I'm also an independent journalist, a social activist, and a social entrepreneur currently here in Taiwan. I will study in the States this year, so that is currently my plan. I have founded Culture at Flint and also currently work at several nonprofit organizations and journalism organizations here in Taiwan. Also started a new startup company, which we call a social entrepreneur, promoting media literacy educations here in Taiwan as well. I am currently also planning to launch a technology company by introducing all these different VR, AR techniques into traditional media and create a new industry. So that is my quick introduction. So hopefully everybody can get to know me well. So before I actually talk about journalism and digitalizations, I heard a lot of question about how you as a 17-year-old student, want to get into journalism, because normally a lot of master degrees offer journalism and masters, which is like pretty much older than 17 or 18 years old. So trying to get into journalism in a nowadays society, it's a pretty cool idea. So I just want to talk about a little bit about my story and how I get into journalism and all these multiculturalisms and gradually moving from journalism to digitalization. So I would say my story dated back when I was 14 years old. I was being inspired by a director called Director Charlie Chu. And what he did is really cool. He is a domestic Taiwanese 3D director where he made 3D films documenting these neglected cultures in Taiwan, such as the traditional Chinese dragon, the dragon dances, the art crafts, and feather dusters, all these traditional Chinese art crafts. And a lot of young people just want to go back to their home country and inherit these cultures. So he's trying to document all these neglected cultures domestically. So from that point on, I was thinking, as a 14-year-old kid, I want to actually do something. But I'm not really sure how can I actually do. So I immediately, without any kind of hesitation, I get into these fields of multiculturalism, started getting to know about these topics, and started an organization called Culture Edu Flint. And after a few years, I have a teacher. She is committed, kind of like engaged in a marriage with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend is from America. So I heard a lot of story about them, being oppressed by all these social norms and all these different cultural clashes, cultural differences, and specifically my teacher's mom also are being blamed by her mom because of these cross cultural relationship, which is not widely accepted in most Asian countries. So that's also something we call as a cultural identity problems or interracial relationship problems. So that is also being counted as one of the part in multiculturalism. So that is also how I added on to my journey, started to know about how I can combine multimedia with journalism, with multiculturalism, and really do something for these issues in Taiwan. So I have encountered a lot of difficulties as an underage. We need to constantly build on credibility, build on our visibility to reach out to more people, to professor, and make collaborations with government officials and different schools. We also look at immigration issues and all kinds of things. So that is the point on I started to get to know about these multiculturalisms, these multimedia, and multimedia, which journalism is also part of the field or the spectrum of journalism. So that is the point on how I realized how powerful social media or journalism is, because these kind of media platforms offer these people, or whether it's immigrations or people suffer from cultural issues, a great platform for them to speak out for themselves, especially for self media nowadays. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, like we cannot get out of it, and we cannot not constantly check on it. We're like so entitled to these social media, and this is how we can actually express ourselves through self media. So I realized that is how powerful it is in nowadays society, and that is the point on I started to get to know about journalism. So me myself started to work in several news organizations in Taiwan, and especially those nonprofits and those profit cooperations, spirit cooperations. I started to work in them, and it was a lot of different, I would say, shocking point, because as a journalist, I personally expect myself to be the one who strive for right news, for human rights violations. We actually do in our nonprofit organizations. We cover all these East Asians human rights violations, whether it's in Afghanistan or the 2021 Myanmar coup protest earlier last year. We do all these human rights violations, but there are some problems involving in journalism currently right now. So, say for example, I'm not sure if you guys have watched a Netflix series. It is called The Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma reveals a problems happening around the world. Not only because we probably heard a lot about news about Facebook selling our private data or our private personal profiles for other platforms, and that is how our privacies are being leaked out without our consent. So that is a problem happening, which most of the people are focusing right now. But social dilemma also reveals how we are well driven by algorithm, and also calls like all different society problems, polarizations, political hatred, and racism issues. Um, well, journalism, I would say, the history of journalism is what can be dated back in the 1990s, where televisions and all these traditional media, such as newspaper, televisions, radio, come into place. And from that time, we don't have smartphones, we don't have these devices. And if you ask me if there are any polarizations or different sided happening in that specific time, I would say yes, because people most likely to watch these channels or entitled to their own beliefs or political preferences at their own opinions, but they don't have such things as an algorithm, which is what Facebook have put on people. Algorithms will be, kind of manipulate us and also feed us on what we like. So that's the problems happen in Facebook, and also not in Facebook, but also in a lot of platforms and technology cooperations happening in Silicon Valleys and basically everywhere right now. And the consequence is pretty obvious. We are all entitled to our own beliefs. We are being locked in our own echo chambers, and a lot of different political, polarizations. Where if I am a Democrat, I only watch Democrats channels. If I'm a Republican, I only watch Republican channels. But there are no such like a communication bridge between different sides. So that also cause hatred, call information like they don't get together and they don't discuss with each other. Not only that, a lot of racism issues are happening because all these stereotypes or these images are being released on these platforms that cause hatred between different races. So for example, as I know, for a famous example here in Taiwan, a lot of Aborigines or immigration workers are being you know described or depicted as a criminal, or the one who are like illegal workers in Taiwan, or the one who stole money, stealing jobs from domestic citizens. And all these different images leads to very serious problems that people only sees or believes what they sees on televisions, but never verify the informations from all these platforms, these channels, these television. So that is the biggest problems happening in journalism right now. So that was some of the issues I found when I started to get into journalism, and when I started to working into all these news organizations. But also outside of journalism, I also get into know about all those human rights violations, whether it's politics, whether it is environmental issues. All these kind of issues are also being taught or being founded by me when I was working in these journalism organizations, which is a really precious experiences. So after that, after I identify the problem happening in journalism right now, me and several like-minded journalists work in started to work on starting a startup company, which is more like a social entrepreneurship, not exactly is like a journalism nonprofit organizations. It is a startup company that works on bringing media literacy educations or information literacy educations into different schools in Taiwan. Because as I mentioned before, we identify the root problems happen in these bigger companies where they use algorithm to manipulate our users. But because there are capitalisms, we cannot actually change that problem. But what we could do is to equip our student with that specific literacies or these skills to tackle with these misinformations. So that is what we can actually do right now, and also that is more appropriate what I can do in my age. So we started to work on that startup company last year, and the company has been functioned for at least 6 months, and more students are joining in, start to get into knowing about what journalism work, how we can make a better place, how we can use education, these powerful tools to uplift more teenage communities to start to know about journalism and also new news making process. We also want to ensure our students to stand in a news making process to get to know about journalism a little bit, not only just a perspective of a receiver. So that is what I have done, and also identify the problem in journalism. After a few years, I also have conducted a lot of research on journalism specifically. Right now, I have planned to launch a technology company, mainly because it also kind of leads to our next discussions on the journalism, or call this the future of journalism into digitalization. As I mentioned before, the bigger corporations are using an algorithm to control, or we call it manipulate our users on these information they receive. But also the other problems are being driven by digitalization is because a lot of informations are gradually coming on to internet or social media. Think about the last time you opened on your television. That might be a long time ago, right? But when you see all these BBC News, CNN News on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, basically every day. So a lot of different bigger media cooperations and smaller nonprofit organizations are moving onto social media or any kind of internet platforms. And a lot of independent journalism organizations are starting to thriving on their own, viewers or audiences on these social media. So bigger cooperations or bigger media cooperations kind of feel the threat of everything are going digitalized, but a lot of media corporations still remain quite traditional where they when they start to realize that, oh, everything are actually going on internet. What should I do right now? So that is the problem most of the journalism or the press community are facing right now because everything are started digitalized. So you might heard about a lot of problems into media corporations deciding whether should I open up subscriptions, whether I should, how I could earn more money, how can I use advertising or these clickbaits or these algorithms to control the users to see or to consume more of my contents, and it's just like creating a unhealthy environment for journalism right now. So that is the problems I identified of digitalizations and journalism fields. And I would say the trend is going on right now. Everything is just like moving forward. Another topic I also want to talk about in digitalization is I'm not really sure if you guys heard of the current trend right now. It's called metaverse and all these NFTs. These are the current trend where the world and all these whales, we call these whales, is the biggest people working in these technological operations are trying to move the world from Web 2 to Web 3, which is creating a new system. I will say it's a new environment where all these different devices, the information we received, all these platforms we access into a solid network. And I would say, if you do you believe in metaverse? I mean, I do. And it's not really what you believe in, but it's how they or how these bigger whales and technology companies believe in this stuff. So that is the trend currently happening right now. And I would say from the observations of how journals are being digitalized in the Web2 area, which is in the past few years when smartphones are invented, or all these social media such as Instagram, Facebook are being invented, I would probably say that journalisms or the future of journalism might lead to the future of digitalizations or the world of Web3 or metaverse. But of course, the metaverse or these ideas are not being fully implemented. But I do think what as a future generations or the future adults, as a teenager right now, our world might be constructed by metaverse. A lot of our stuff might be on the virtual place. But of course, this might sounds a little bit crazy. That sounds might be a very big idea, but it's a coming trend right now. And I believe that no matter what happened or what is coming right now, the most healthy way to get rid of all these different problems or trying to prevent these problems is whether it's coming forward, we need to create an entire environment and an entire generation to keep it sustainable or to keep it safe for our next generations. Our grandmothers, grandfather will die with their own thoughts. Our mother and father might die with their own thoughts, but we are the one who holds the future, the one who holds the generations, and the future, world is in our hand. Whatever is happening, metaverse or whatever happening, it doesn't really matters, but it really matters is how we create this community or how we preserve this community in a more healthy way, as opposed to like a lot of different technology companies right now trying to use the algorithms to control our audiences or hype it up every DeFi's or any economical environment. So I would say the future is in our hand. Whatever is happening, whatever is coming right now, it's just I would say the more benefit for us is for us to really focus on what's coming in right now and really just like to be civic minded and just to be aware of what we are bringing into our next generation. So I would say this is how I discovered journalisms and how I gradually moving from multiculturalisms to journalisms and how I identify the problem in journalisms and how we can create such community to change or I would say overturn the problems happening in journalism right now, as also we see the future trend of metaverse coming in right now and how journalism can gain itself a foothold in these metaverse or whatever is coming, the future world and digitalization. So that is the end of the topic for journalism and digitalization. Sarah, do you have any other question you want to ask me in regards to this topic?
Yes, ma'am. So moving on to our question and answer session. So I think I got a great idea about journalism. I hope the listeners also have by a very informative session. I have just four questions regarding both the topics. First of all, coming back to journalism, we understand that in most countries, if I exclude the names of the countries, journalism is like a death toll. enrolling in journalism is like in keeping your foot to killing yourself. So could you comment on this and how we can change this, how we together can change the mindset of these countries and such stuff?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I feel like it really is coming to in more deeper ways how we understand the political system. Say, for example, I'm not really sure if you guys know about what's happening in Hong Kong currently right now because of the historical context of Hong Kong and all these different umbrella movements happening in Hong Kong right now. Their freedom of journalism are being cut by China and the CCP laws because of the political systems and the power distributions and currently in China right now. So just a little fact, the Stat News and a lot of independent journalism organizations are kind of getting into fear of being, you know, being restricted or being closed down because of the entire laws and the fear are gradually growing in the place of Hong Kong. I have like a lot of independent journalist friends working there in Hong Kong, and the entire journalism environment is sick and it's unhealthy. People don't want journalism anymore because if they get their words out, they will be canceled. They will be, restricted. They will be thrown in jail. Even if you say anything that is against the entire political system or the country itself. So I would say it can't really control how I personally really support journalism because we all know as a fourth estate, it really works as I would say a bridge or communications that allows people to know about government and a way how government can express their own policies and their bigger method to the audience. But the thing is, you can always control the political system. Whether political system is so varied in different countries, in China and Russia, also in Taiwan as a more democratic places, different democratic country. Journalisms have their own different. It works different way in different country, I would say, but I would say it's not the fault of journalism. It is really how the political system and the political atmosphere that cause how journalism can work in a different country. So that's how I can connect back to your question, and also the circumstances happening in Hong Kong currently right now. Yes.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for that. And then coming again back to our second topic of the day, which was digitalization, the broader topic. So, as you mentioned, the rights to privacy are being violated by the so-called multimedia companies and social media sites and those companies. So, understanding such issues, what advice could be given to the users of such social media? As we see, everybody is in most of the people are in Facebook, most of the people are using Instagram, Twitter. So what advice could be given to such people, seeing your background in educating the younger generation regarding these such issues? Could you enlighten about that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I feel like this could be divided into two parts. One is privacy, and one is how you use media. I have heard one sentence that really shaped me in the Netflix series of Social Dilemma. When you start using Instagram or Facebook, you're basically, because you don't pay for anything, you're basically selling yourself to these companies, and you are the product. You are the one who uses the platform without paying anything. Then you are the product. So, the thing is, when we're talking about privacies or our private informations, of course, when we're starting to use these websites or these, internet or Facebook or Instagram, you're basically selling yourself to it, and you cannot actually prevent yourself, your privacies, identities are being exposed or being held or being, whatever, manipulated by these companies. But I feel like the one thing is, how I feel like it's how teenagers use these, I would say, social media like Facebook, Twitter, how they're kind of exposing themselves on it too much, or they trust too much on these Instagram or Facebook, or pretty too much too much stick themselves to these platforms. And I feel that is the biggest problem right now. And also, as I mentioned before, a lot of teenagers currently right now having problems with verifying these information they received on Instagram or on social media, and also like how they receive something that is not right, which is definitely fake, and they didn't verify the information and start spread all these informations, especially teenagers, because we have different data that shows that most teenagers use social media, but not the older ones. So I feel like teenagers is the main target audiences for these social medias, and that is the problem happening right now. But I would just say, keep yourself, aware and to all these informations, trying to verify it yourself. There are a lot of materials online that you can verify it. I wouldn't blame these media corporations to verify it because the cost of verifications for real news is too high. So it's basically a two-sided problems happening in journalism right now. But I would say just like the greatest solution for this is holding that such literacy, this education we got from schools, we got from all these organizations and basically everywhere to hold that literacies and verify the information and just basically be careful of all your actions, all your exposures on media. That is the only way we can defend ourselves or kind of keep ourselves from danger. But of course, in terms of like all privacies are being sold by companies we cannot control that. This is the current problems and I would say the cost we need to pay for all these these convenience. Yeah, that is the answer for the question.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And coming back, reverting back to my last question, which is in my hand, seeing myself also as a person who is interested in journalism and then such stuff about activism and things. So could you explain to us how we can get into the circuit of journalism, activism, seeing seeing most of the people love to do such things but don't know where to start and where to join and where to start their career, start their interest field.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I feel like that is a progress where you actually can put yourself, start to explore different fields, their own passion and start to get into these. And I feel like that is a progress. There are kind of like a progress or like an SOP I'll often provide it to my listener or my audience or my students is, when you have your own ideas you have in mind, trying to connect it. So say for example, my friends, he is interested in, you know, environmental issues or climate crisis actions, but she's also into bees, into all these insects. What she did is she researched about these how these bee honeys or how these the products the honeys are being affected by the climate change issue. So this is the way how she can combine her interest in the social issues, kind of combine it together and sort of like market it to the public and raise public awarenesses through it. So that is the way how you can explore your interest first and I kind of trying to combine your own interest to the social issues, trying to apply what you learn and contribute back to the society to raise these awarenesses. And I would say this is the way that you can identify yourself or trying to know yourself more through this progress. And then I feel like there are a lot of ways, you don't necessarily need to start initiatives in order to make something better or to raise awarenesses. You can just do by, starting to do some personal self-branding on Instagram or starting to spread some awarenesses, such as if you care about racism, start to share some content on racism. Start to know a lot more about racism right now. So that's all the way that you can start getting into it. Or even if you want to start an initiative, start a project, start a fundraising programs in your school, start by zero, start by a little bit, and you can also still make a big impact and start expanding your own model. And that is the first thing that how you can identify yourself, explore your interests, and gradually coming into that specific fields. But also another part of it is also a lot of students asking me about it. How can I, build my community or know about people? How can I actually combine or expand my visibility to the entire society or even build on my credibility? And my personal preferences or my personal suggestion is, go to different conferences, get outside, I would say sell your own ideas to other people. Me, my personal experiences, I didn't go from zero and gradually build myself to one, two, three. I would say make myself is I put myself in zero, started to sell my own ideas, and I jumped immediately to 100. I work with journalists. I work with amazing professors. I work with amazing cooperations by just basically going out, go to different conferences, starting to shake hands with people who sit beside you. They could be your next collaborators. They could be the next coworkers in your organizations or the next big business. So that's the way how I sell myself, sell my own ideas, and how I build a community with the like-minded people, not only journalists but also I could spend my own network to technology company leaders, to these bigger cooperations, to people from different fields, because a lot of different fields right now are interconnected. Technology, journalism. Not only that, but a lot of different, fields or industries are interconnected. So I'll say stand up, trying to reaching out, going to conferences, going to summits. Even Model United Nations can also work as a place that you get your literacy, get your connection from, trying to know about the people beside you, and they can also be your next collaborators. All these different, achievements are being created because of collaborations and all these different possibilities. And you will never foresee what will happen in the future. I would say start to get yourself out, be confident. Any ideas are all big ideas. When we're living in a society where all big ideas can solve a bigger money, a bigger possibilities, or all these different social issues can be solved or being spread on social media. So I would say we're living in the right generations, and I think all of us and all our teenagers should take advantage of it and live our life, spread our awarenesses and spread what we want to change the world. That is my answer to the question.
Thank you so much. With that, I've exhausted my questions for you. Moving on with the next part, we have a small token of appreciation for spending your time with us. And thank you so much again for this informative session with you. We learned, I hope the listeners got a broad idea about a different aspect of these topics and a lot of things. And thank you so much again. And we've come to the end with the hope of bringing such amazing programs again. I would like to end our program here. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, ma'am, for attending.